Welcome to the Alpha Pickleball Podcast, where we slice through the noise to bring you the juiciest insights, strategies, and stories from the dynamic world of pickleball. Join us as we serve up engaging conversations with top players, coaches, and enthusiasts, giving you an ace perspective on all things pickleball. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just stepping onto the court, get ready for a volley of knowledge that'll elevate your game to alpha levels. Let the rallies begin.
All right, welcome again to the show. I'm your host, Tats. Really excited because we have Eric Roddy here. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely glad to be here. Sorry it took me so long getting it set up, but happy to be here and excited to talk.
Yeah, you have a sports tennis background, pro pickleball, business side as well. How did your interest in pickleball start?
Yeah, so I think I knew of it, as far back as like maybe even high school or a little bit after that, but it never really was forefront of mind until I went to Georgia. So I went to the University of Georgia to get my MBA, so grad school, and I started in 2020. So it's kind of still pretty heavy COVID that time. So when I was at Georgia, I reached out to the women's tennis team, the coaches there, because I had some tennis coaching experience in my past. And I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm a grad student, I'm an MBA. It should be pretty relaxed in terms of how much they were demanding of us. So I reached out to say, could I help you assistant coach? And they were like, absolutely. We usually have a volunteer, and our volunteer just left. So I took her place as volunteer assistant coach of the UGA women's tennis team. And when I was there, Drake Bernstein, who's now the head, he was the associate head at the time. He was a great pickleball player, still is. And he kind of taught me how to play and had a court in his backyard. So before practice, after practice, even when we would travel to go on away matches or tournaments, we would play. It was mostly singles, and I learned on the right, and now playing mostly the left side. But learned from Drake, had a blast getting to play. And then my second year was a 2-year program. My second year actually went to Indianapolis. Actually, this is the first year. So right after my first year, I went to Indianapolis and played my first tournament in an APP out there. So that's kind of how it started.
Nice. It's just kind of a built-in training program, right? So you're volunteering, but you're training before and after. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, no, it was a good time getting to do a little bit of everything, right? I think that's kind of my nature is to try to dabble in everything. But it's kind of how I got my start.
Yeah, and I guess I have a tennis background, so I'd like to know like what part of it for you came easier than others.
Yeah, I think for me, I wasn't a top junior or even didn't play D1. Could have gone to like a smaller D1 school, but ended up going to D3 at the University of Sewanee to play. And D3's gotten a lot better, I think, especially even since I've left. But for me, I was a full-blown transparency. I was somewhat of a hacker. I sliced my forehand, sliced my backhand. I would go to the net and use my reach to volley, had really good hands. So I think those are the natural things that transfer over, right? You used to be able to slice your return. Can't really do that anymore with how hard people are hitting the thirds. So, but at the time would slice, and then the touch at the net and drops were super natural. I don't think it took me more than a month or two to learn how to kind of drop from anywhere on the court with that background in tennis. Big fan of the drop shot lob in tennis. So I would just say that soft finesse stuff. And I think also some of the footwork's the same, right? Sidestepping, shuffling, going back for an overhead, all that kind of transfers. But I'll tell you what, it took me a solid year or two to really kind of get comfortable in doubles. Just because you can have all the tennis background in the world, but some of the patterns and some of the focus it takes to stay in a dink rally or not speed up a ball that you think that you want to, those are the things that really take a while to learn.
Yeah, for sure. When you were mentioning like slice on both sides and using your reach, I'm thinking of was it Fabrice Santoro?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Huge fan of him, the magician. So yeah.
I love it. And then I guess, when you start to take it more seriously, like what did you do different?
So I think honestly, this is my first full year being signed with the PPA. This is my first kind of full year of playing a full slate. Last year I played kind of a mix of APPs and PPAs and maybe played 8 total. This year I'll do 16 to 20. So for me, it's trying to maximize my practice time and also trying to get in the gym when possible. It's much easier to get in the gym not being full-time pickleball when we're not playing these tournaments. So right now, for example, had a little bit of a lull in between Atlanta and Dallas, so trying to get in the gym. But for me, it's just being way more intentional with my practice and my time. At Georgia, Drake and I were just having a good time playing, and really was our main source of exercise, especially on those road trips. But now I'm approaching it more as a full-time job and more of a how do I get better every day and a lot more drilling. Still having a blast playing rec with the Charlotte crew here, but also trying to work in some drilling and trying to get better and get in the gym when possible, even though it's hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about juggling. I know you have a full-time job, and I know a lot of people that want to get better have a full-time job. So, when you talk about being intentional, what are we talking about? Are you talking about like, planning out every minute of the hour and a half or the hour you have, or like what are we talking about?
Yeah, I wouldn't even go that far. I think it's more of just like, hey, I've got 2 hours today. Today's Monday. I've got 2 hours. What do I need to do to get better in those 2 hours? Maybe it's not spending the usual 10 to 15 minutes just kind of doing the regular thinking, without thinking. Maybe it's coming out and saying with my practice partner, hey, let's do this dink or let's do this pattern. So like, maybe not planning out every single minute, but trying to eliminate that time where you're just kind of going through the motions. I think that's the key. Is like if you only have 2 hours, you don't really even have time to spend 5 minutes just going through the motions. You need to be intentional. CJ Klinger came here with the Hustlers before MLP to practice with Jack and the team. He's somebody that I think is an incredible drilling partner because, and we kind of joke about it. He'll come out, he'll start firing away on the first ball, which can be a lot if you're just trying to warm up. But I actually like it because he doesn't waste any time and he truly practices the way he plays. So that was something that was awesome to see. It's like, yeah, at first we're like, hey CJ, like let's just deke a couple balls, stop trying to like attack us. But then by the end, I was like, wait, no, let's just go for it. I kind of like it. So just being more intentional, I think.
Yeah, practice the way they play. I guess so. If you're an aggressive player,
Right.
why are you working on anything in practice that doesn't reflect your game style?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh, interesting. Talk to me about your Charlotte crew and how's it work there?
Yeah. I think we're in the midst of trying to get a YouTube channel or an Instagram page or something. But and again, like I can't understate how much fun or overstate, I guess, how much fun we're having. So it's Colin Schick, me, Brooke Buckner, and Jack Sock. We go up to Jack's pretty much daily. For me, it's a little bit more sporadic just with work, but we go up there, play in his backyard. We're incorporating more drilling now and not just kind of playing rec, but I'll tell you what, there's no better exercise or more fun exercise in the world than playing rec with that crew. Um, yeah, so it's just a blast. We hang out when we travel on the tournaments, and we're hanging out outside of pickleball. I think Jack and I may go play some padel. Colin and I played. So yeah, it's just a great crew. I can't say enough. And then kind of outside of those three as well, Pierre Imperato, Liz Truluck, Eddie Perez is here. Also a great squad. And we'll do a lot of mornings together and go over to the local park and kind of drill and stuff. So Charlotte's its own kind of little mini hub now. I know you think of Austin, you think of South Florida, Delray area down there, but maybe Utah. Charlotte's got its own kind of mini hub, and we're hoping to grow. So if anyone's trying to move and looking for that next kind of practice area and doesn't want to go to Texas or Florida, come to North Carolina.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. Um, you know, you just mentioned Jack. You're close to him. You get to see him. how he's developed or working on it. What do you learn from seeing Jack Sock work on his game or play?
I think, the main thing for me is kind of the attitude. I think it's he wants to get better and he gets better, I think, every time he plays, but he's also not, in a way, this is he just retired from tennis, so this is kind of the next phase, next chapter in life, and has a new son, and so I think a lot of it's just kind of teaching me the perspective. Seeing somebody have fun, seeing somebody take it seriously, but not too seriously. And I think he shows that in the tournaments when he goes on court. He'll talk some smack, but it's never malicious. It's always out of good nature and good fun in the sport. So for me, it's just that attitude and the good balance of like trying hard, working hard, getting better, but also maintaining the point of the sport, I think, which is to have a good time and it's fun for everybody. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I've learned the most.
Yeah. You having a busy schedule, you're playing more and more tournaments. I mean, what does tournament preparation look like for you?
I think it starts, number one is kind of getting organized and as early as possible. I'll buy airport parking as early as like 2 weeks before, start running through my paddles, making sure I'm good on equipment, reaching out to ProXR if I need a couple new paddles before a tournament. Kind of really starting and making sure that when I do leave, I've got everything I need, make sure I'm packing right. And then honestly, from like a preparation standpoint, it's a couple, 4 or 5 days before I won't go to the gym. I'll focus more instead on playing and kind of making sure that I'm not, I'm doing injury prevention, stretching, that kind of thing. And then really focusing on drilling. I really like to drill before a tournament, just kind of really hone in those third shot drops, resets, work on hands. Because you once we get to the tournament, we'll play tons of rec. Usually play like anywhere from a couple games to sometimes as many as 10 leading into a tournament, like the few days before. So flying to Dallas next Wednesday, we'll get there in the morning. I'll work, and then in the afternoon head to the site and try to get some rec in. May not play too much singles before, but need to practice that as well. So yeah, I think it's really just planning ahead, making sure everything you can control is under control, and then start drilling. I really think I can't stress enough how important drilling is, especially leading into a tournament.
Sure. And during the tournament, prepping for matchups or whatever, I mean, what goes through your head?
So yeah, I think it's awesome that they're releasing the draws much earlier now than they had in the past. It gives you a sense to kind of, if you want to watch film on your opponent, that's awesome. Otherwise, just kind of mentally prepare for who you might play or face. For me, I try not to worry too much about that, just because I feel like you can get in your own head and you can kind of overthink things and try to strategize too much. Especially in singles, I think doubles a lot. Strategy plays a much bigger role, especially your opponent's strategy. But for me in singles, it's more controlling what I control again, and really just maximizing my play. If I can play, even an 8 out of 10 of my best, I feel like I can beat pretty much anybody on any given day. But the hard part of pickleball and the hard part of any kind of professional sport is reaching your potential day in and day out, or at least giving yourself a chance to reach it that day. So for me, that's kind of what I'll focus on going into a tournament, just mentally getting ready to battle and mentally getting ready to try to put myself in the position to win. So
Yeah. And for you, partnerships, how do you view those? Like what type of partnerships work well for you?
yeah, it's funny because Steve Deacon and I, who just paired up for Atlanta, had a sweet little run of the round of 16. We were talking about this. We both agreed I would much rather play with somebody, and Steve's an incredible player, obviously, so not even talking about him, but I would much rather play with somebody that I enjoy playing with and that I get along with than necessarily like the best player possible from a pickleball standpoint. So much of success, I think, especially when 1 or 2 points can determine the outcome, is about playing free, trusting your shots and trusting your partner. And I think that's so much easier when you have a good relationship both on and off the court with them. Steve and I hung out in Atlanta. We went and go played at a chicken and pickle with the Sock and Schick before on a day that we didn't play. So that kind of stuff's important to me. I think, I'll play a couple with Dobrin later this year and Marshall Brown. I really try to get with guys that are like-minded and that I enjoy hanging out with. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What's for you? What sort of things are you working on to get better?
I think right now, one thing is being adaptable to be able to play both sides. Obviously, in mixed, I play the left every time, and in men's, I've been playing the left pretty much the last year. But some of these partners I have lined up down the road, I might just switch to the right, or also what we're seeing with the paddles technology advancing, and also with just people getting better. You can't unwind a stack as easy anymore. So if your return's not fantastic, it's honestly better at this point with how good people are driving the ball to just not unwind the stack and start the point on your return on whatever side that you were on. So again, just being able to dink both sides, being able to be solid on both sides, especially from a matchup standpoint. It may come in a match if you're getting killed or if you need a spark that you and your partner need to switch. So that's one thing, and then the other thing too is just for me, it's speeding up, being a little bit more aggressive and initiating those fast hands battles and really being the aggressor instead of kind of trying to counter all the time and be a little bit more passive. I think with the game, with the technology changes and more athletes and better players coming in, it's gotten a lot more aggressive. So it's either strike first or kind of, or be attacked. So would much rather strike first. So I'm trying to work on it too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from your point of view, what are the successes or what are the things you need to do being on the left side versus the right side? What are the differences in your mind?
Yeah, I think maybe easier is not the best word, but I really think the right's much simpler to play. Um, especially if you're playing with a more dominant or aggressive left side player. For me, the left is tough because you obviously have to be able to dink off both sides. You should be taking the forehand dink in the middle unless you're playing with a lefty or somebody who's really comfortable with an inside out backhand dink. But so you have to dink middle forehands, and then you also have to protect the out wide backhand. So many people are able to roll their backhand dinks now and really get the left person off the court. So I think just that in a coverage standpoint, right? So on the left, you gotta be able to reach a lot more, and a lot of the times you're the more aggressive player, just by nature because you've got that forehand in the middle. So for me, what I'm working on especially is trusting my right side partner a little bit more and really covering the line when the ball's in front of me. If I'm dinking, down the line with the right side player, and then also covering my opponent. So if the vice versa happens and my opponent's dinking with the opponent's left side player, I'll cover the middle and really step there and be willing to get beat short cross angle. Just kind of those little tiny nuances are super important. And then, like I said, speeding up off the bounce more, getting more aggressive, creating offense. Being on that left side, you got to be able to create some offense off the bounce.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you, if you were talking about partnerships and stuff like that, how do you talk through that to figure out who does what on the sides?
Yeah, I think at this level, I think, and the beauty of pickleball still being a relatively small community in the program, I think everybody knows each other's games pretty well. For me, it's just being super open and transparent and honest. Like I have no problem saying, hey, right now I'm not feeling the forehand dink in the middle. Why don't you come over and take that? Just as an example. Or I'm going to need to roll my two-handed backhand dink. So just maybe take a half a step off the line and give yourself a little bit more time to counter in case they go high. Like just little things like that. Or, it really can just be, hey, this is your strength, right side player. You're better than that right side player in doing it. Just beat them. If you're a better dinker cross court on the right, sit in that pattern. And as a left side player, I'll lean into the middle and look to take a ball. I think just little tiny things like that, playing to your strengths, realizing your opponent's weaknesses and trying to exploit them.
Got it. No ego, just being able to
Yeah.
communicate through the realities of the situation. You mentioned something really interesting there, which I've been thinking about lately, is you said rolling. So basically you're on the left side, you're rolling your two-hander. You have a two-hander, right? I think you did.
Yeah. And a
Yeah.
work in progress, but yeah.
Yeah. So you're rolling the two-hander, and yes, even the best leave it high sometimes because
Yeah.
that thing can have power. So just, basically, the communication prior so that maybe your partner takes a step, off the line
Mhm.
while you're doing that. If it lands, then there's Ernie watch or whatever. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. I just think, yeah, that and with it being a work in progress, still not a comfortable kind of rolling the two-hander as I am kind of hacking and slicing the one-hander.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, that was more of an example. But yeah, just being in touch with your partner and being in touch in the middle of the game too. I think that's key too. It's not like you can't adjust in this sport. It's not like you don't have two timeouts. You need to treat it like a chess match, and you need to be willing to analyze real time what's working and what's not to give yourself the best chance to win. Especially with how close games are usually. It happens, but it's rare to get totally blown out by a team unless you're playing a top seed and you're not playing good. So yeah, so I think just being able to realize in time live kind of what's going on and analyze and adapt.
Yeah. And also like during a match, you saw adjustments or timeouts. I mean, how much detail or talking in your mind needs to happen there? Because I don't know if it could be information overload or whatnot, but
Yeah.
how do you view that?
Yeah, I think information overload is definitely a real threat. Keeping it simple, realizing when a pattern's not working, or realizing when a pattern is working and you need to exploit it. Just little things like, partners will say, stay there. If you're picking on somebody weaker at the time, like that's our guy or that's our spot. But yeah, you don't want to overdo it, I think, because the goal is to play free and play kind of without thinking when you're actually in the point. I just meant more kind of when you have a time, just take a second step back and say, hey, what's working, what's not. But overall, yeah, keeping it simple for sure. Key.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned a few things already, but I mean, when people come up to you while you're playing these pro events, what sort of like questions do people commonly ask you about, improving pickleball?
I think a lot of people. The funny part is I typically talk a lot when I play, whether it's to myself or just kind of antics and saying stuff out loud. And sometimes I'll say, oh, why didn't you drop that? Or why didn't you reset that? So I think, some people come up after a match like, hey, what'd you mean when you said that was stupid because you sped the ball up in the midcourt or something like that? But I think most people they just want to know a lot, the majority of people that are amateurs, unless it's like a friend who's also a pro and just commenting on something funny that happened. But most of the time it's an amateur saying, hey, how do you hit that shot? I see you doing this with your wrist or doing that with your, keeping the butt of the paddle down. Like, what are you doing there? And why are you doing that? So a lot of times I think it's more technical. The strategy I think kind of speaks for itself. I think that's the best part about pickleball is you can kind of pick up on basic strategies, whether you're a 3-0 or a pro. So a lot of the time it'll just be kind of a techniques question or somebody asking why I said I was stupid or something.
Cool. In terms of, sort of growing the pro game audience and stuff like that, or the business side of things, what do you think needs to happen for it to take it to the next level?
Yeah, I've been asked this a couple of times, and I think I think my answer is always evolving and changing. But for me, I think the next step is to get it on, to get it on TV. It is on TV, but to get it kind of really popular on TV. I think the sport's awesome because so many people can play because of how low the barrier to entry to play is. So you're getting new people playing every day. It's the fastest growing sport in America. But I think to kind of sustain the pro game and keep it kind of even moving up the trajectory, is getting it consistently on TV and getting it watched by those who, number one, do play. I think a lot of people I know play all the time, but they don't watch pro pickleball or they don't watch pickleball. And then getting people that don't play pickleball to watch and then want to go play or keep watching. And for me, it's finding that mix of tennis with like WWE. So I think there's such a great social and kind of dramatic narrative to this sport just because of how close everybody on the court is, and then also how everybody knows everything about each other. I mean, if you had mic'd up, like, for example, that Matt Wright, Will Howells match from Houston, PPA Houston a month ago, I think people would have eaten that up. It's funny because like memes of pickleball is obviously a memes website and memes page, but a lot of some of the stuff that they're doing and they're clipping is like what I think should be kind of embraced a bit more. Obviously, there's a line and you have children watching and you can't go too far across the line. But I think, finding a way to build in that dramatic flair and that kind of energy that this sport has as a result of all four players being feet away from each other, whether it's miking players up or encouraging the crowd to chirp, or there's a way to overcome some of the shortcomings of the sport that are natural. Like, dink rallies aren't that exciting all the time if you don't play. So I think it's finding that bridge between the pickleball fanatics that love to watch the most boring point and the newcomers who are like, what is this sport? This is ridiculous. How do we bridge those to kind of make it sustainable?
Yeah, it's like, I don't play this, but I can't turn away.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Is there anything I didn't ask, but you wanted to share?
Trying to think. I just want to say shout out to everybody who's helped me kind of get to where I am and get to be able to call myself a professional athlete, which is awesome. The Charlotte crew, again, every single person that plays with me here, whether it's Jack and the crew or Eddie and Pierre and those players, I think I just having a blast. ProXR, awesome sponsor. It's like, it literally is like a family with how they treat kind of their athletes, and then the PPA also for giving me the opportunity and the chance to kind of help spread the game. I can't say how much fun I can't say enough how much fun I've had. It's been a blast, and getting to do some events for the PPA too. Like we did a Special Olympics clinic in Atlanta that I got to take part in. That was an absolute blast, and I'll be doing another wheelchair event in Dallas here in next week. So living the dream, can't say enough. Super blessed to just get to do this, even as full-time, part-time. So yeah, and thanks to you for caring about the sport and trying to get the message out there and having us on. I think it's super important. And again, I owe you big time because it took me forever to get on here, but super grateful.
No, it's fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to the Alpha Pickleball Podcast with Tats. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, rate, and connect with us on social media. Stay alpha on the pickleball court. Until our next session.